I would like to know if all of you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, so please respond to this poll if you can hear my voice clearly. I would like to know if my voice is loud and clear to all of you, and then I will proceed accordingly. Okay, so I see that a good number of you can hear me, some of you can't hear me. Okay, can you please respond to this poll if you can hear me clearly, please? And I see the votes changing now. Earlier, a lot of people said that they can't hear me. Now I can see that most of you can hear me. That's great. So if you are having any trouble in hearing me, I can see that most of you can hear me. In that case, please try rejoining the session. That might help. Okay. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on wherever you are. I'm Piyush, and I'm going to be your main host in this webinar today. I'm going to talk about basically how to improve your score by 100 plus points in 30 days. So I have around 8 years of experience mentoring students for management and test, including the GMAT. I have helped students get into the top 10 schools around the globe. And over this years, I have taken the GMAT myself. I've scored a 740. And during my interactions, I have learned some very, very important factors that actually go a long way in improving your scores. So I'm going to talk about those aspects today. So the webinar is going to be very focused towards your score improvement. And in case you're looking for a subject matter related webinar, we are having a webinar on this Sunday at 7 p.m. IST, which is 1:30 p.m. GMT. You can attend the webinar by registering with the link which is there uh, in the chat section. Okay, so if you haven't registered for it, you can basically go ahead and register for the webinar right now. All right, so I'm giving you a minute to register. The webinar is on Sunday. We are going to talk about basically the uh, three powerful strategies to master critical reasoning section of the GMAT. Okay, so before I proceed, I would like to know, when are you guys planning to take the GMAT? So here is a small poll in the chat. I just want there's a small poll which you should be able to see on your screen. So let me know, when are you planning to take the GMAT? Okay, that will help me get an idea about the batch that I have today. And remember, the webinar is going to be around 100-point score improvement in 30 days. So this question is very, very important for me. Okay, so I see a lot of votes coming up, and I see almost the results as I expected them, but I'll wait for a few more votes to come in. Okay, good. So I see the results have been stabilized now. So let me end the poll. So I can see that most of you are taking the GMAT around the round one deadline. So I understand a lot of you are looking for round one deadlines, and some of you might be taking it in 30 days or 40 days or 45 days, and you're looking at a quick turnaround. So this webinar is going to help you understand what are the key aspects to ensure you do well on the test. And at the same time, the webinar is also going to talk a lot more about some study strategies that will help people who are also taking the GMAT later on. Okay, so there are going to be three parts to this webinar, as I mentioned earlier. In the first part of the webinar, I'm going to quickly talk about who we are as a company, and then we will basically go to the main part of the webinar, where we are going to talk about the score improvement strategy that you should follow. And then in the end, I'll open up the session for open-ended Q&A. So it'll give around 20-25 minutes over there. And in this session, you can feel free to ask me any questions that you have around your GMAT prep, around your MBA applications, and anything. Okay, so that's how the webinar is structured. So let's get started with who we are. So we are a group of experts who have been in this industry for over 3 decades now. And while working with some of the top brands in the industry, we actually identified some of the key pain points that students face when they prepare for the GMAT journey. And we found out that in most of the cases, students have to plan their studies themselves. Okay, they don't really, they're probably new to GMAT, or they are studying from a long time, but they don't know what is to be done on a certain day. They kind of are clueless about it, and they're supposed to do it themselves. And then we identified that even most students struggle to analyze their strengths and weaknesses. They try to do that, but they do not have a clear-cut idea about where they are struggling, why they are struggling, and so on. And one of the biggest reasons for that is there is hardly any individual attention given to students. Now, there are solutions in the industry that we found were actually catering to these problems, but they were solving these problems only partially. So what we found was there are some people who provide a 1 month or a 3 month plan, but the problem with this plan is these plans do not adapt as you learn. So it's a templatized plan which is served to every single person who comes to the platform. So that's a big problem. So let's say you have more time in a particular week to study, or you have less time in a particular week to study, or you're learning fast, you're learning slow, the plan is not going to adapt as per your speed. Secondly, what we saw was there are some companies who provide statistics, who do share statistics, but these statistics are generally not actionable. They tell you that you're weak in SC. They tell you that you're weak in probably CR. But why is that you're weak in SC or CR is something that they don't tell you. They don't tell you how to work on them. They don't tell you how to go about improving on them. And the only way to get individual attention is to go for private tutoring. And we all of us know that private tutoring is not affordable for every person. Okay, so that is when we got together and we decided that we need to change this problem that the students are facing, and try to make the students' life much more simpler and easier. And that's when the idea of GMAT came about, and we decided that we are going to solve this problem through world's only truly personalized learning course that uses technology to solve most of these problems. And we started GMAT with a vision that we are going to solve these problems in 3 simple stages. First of all, we'll provide every student who comes on our platform with a personalized study plan, which actually personalizes learning according to the student's pace of learning. So the personalized plan will take care of not just telling you, okay, you are supposed to complete the course in 10 days. It will not just tell you that, okay, you're supposed to complete this part of the course in 10 days or 15 days. It will actually identify your strengths and weaknesses. It will also integrate the entire learning modules, like the video lessons, the quizzes that you're supposed to solve on individual days, and put all of them in the right place. So your job is just to learn. You're not supposed to worry about what to study when and how your progress is going to go forward. Okay. Then what we do is we also include real-time improvement modules in our course using AI. So let's say you are done with a particular topic, the AI runs deep tech and identifies, looking at the option choices that you marked, that why did you make those mistakes that you made, and how can you improve on those mistakes. And basis that, it serves you real-time improvement modules by adding relevant videos, relevant quizzes as required on the portal, on the go, in the same place where you're studying. So you don't have to worry about going to some place else, identifying where it is. It is all added to the same course. Okay. And we believe that even though AI is there, everyone needs motivation, everyone needs guidance. So we provide dedicated mentorship to all our students who take the entire quant plus verbal package from us. They get a dedicated mentor who monitors your progress every 10 to 15 days and provides you guidance throughout your journey. Okay. And this mentor is not someone who is a call center representative who is just reading from a generalized document. These mentors are those people who have taken the GMAT themselves, scored 700 plus, and have more than 7 years experience of mentoring students. Okay, so that's what we provided GMAT with. That was a short overview about us, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we have been the most effective GMAT club partner till date. And we have, in terms of average score improvement, we have had an amazing 116 points average improvement, whereas the other key players are not even close to us. Okay, so that's what we take a lot of pride in, and we have tried to make sure that the learning is personalized. So today I'm going to talk about how to improve your score by 100 points in 30 days. Okay, so I have a question in the Q&A part. Mehdi, your question is I will take your question towards the end of the webinar. It's more related to MBA applications and which schools you should apply to. So please hold on to your question for the third part of the webinar. I hope you understand. Thank you. So in the main part, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to structure the whole thought process. Okay, how I'm going to take you through the improvement process altogether. So first of all, we will understand what students do. Okay, what people generally do when they have to improve their score. Okay, and I'm going to ask you this question as well, like an open-ended question, and then we will understand what students should actually do. Okay, what they generally do and what should they actually do. So before I take you any further in this, and the reason why I want you to focus on both these aspects is not just the second aspect, is unless you understand what you're doing and why why is it right or wrong, doing what you should do becomes difficult. Okay, so before I proceed, let me ask this question to everyone over here, and please feel free to write in the chat. You are looking for a 100 plus point improvement in your score. Probably that's why you are here in this webinar. So what is the strategy that you are following at present to improve your score by 100 points in what next 30-40 days? What is your strategy? I would like to hear from you guys first. Okay, please feel free to write your chat. There is no right or wrong answer to this. I want to hear what are your thoughts on this. What is your plan of action? What are you doing? And once I know it, I will be able to guide you much better. Trust me, guys. So I'm looking forward to your comments in the chat. Please feel free to let me know what is your strategy to improve your score by 100 points in the next 30-40 days. Okay, let's see some answers coming. All right, so I have one response from Indraneet. He says, I'm going to practice a lot of questions. Good. James says, I'm going to keep a review log, do as many questions as possible and review the log and understand the mistakes from time to time. Good. Bhavika says, I'm practicing. Okay. Arun has an interesting point of view. Arun says, I'm going to improve my SC and CR concepts and strategies. Good, Arun. Okay, Sudhanshu has mentioned that I'm going to identify the sections to improve, practice more and more. Okay. Shubham says, I'm solving more questions and analyzing weak areas. Shubhrajit has a new point. He says, I'm going to give mocks. Ritika says, I'm going to practice OG going through concepts of CR. Okay, so that is good. Mehdi, I would request you to reserve your question for the end. Your question is like going to be taken care of in the third section. All right, Akshat says, I'm going to take mocks, understand weaknesses, learn concepts, practice question to improve on weaknesses. Okay, good. Akshat, you have a plan in place. Seems like that. Great. Okay, Kranti is going to start from basics to revise concepts, then go to main books to concept and then solving questions. Okay, Ritika is going to take mock tests. Tisha is also going to do that. All right, so I have a lot of comments and that's something which is very common. I see that with most of the students, and that's what I've also mentioned in my slides. So what do people do? The first thing they do is practice questions. Practice tons of questions, and that's probably the most common keyword that was there mentioned by most of you. Practice a lot of questions, because at the end of the day, questions are what is tested on the GMAT. So yeah, I'll practice questions. Most people also believe in taking a lot of mock tests. So I come across this question many times. In fact, there was one question on the social media which I saw very recently. I saw students saying that, okay, I have been preparing for 2 months now. I'm still stuck at around 450 or 500 kind of a score. So I'm planning to take another mock in this week. Then I'll take another mock the next week. Then I'll take another mock the next week. And my target is like 700. Okay, that's something which a lot of people do. They take a lot of mocks at regular intervals. Then they also do concept building. So most of you mentioned that you're going to work on your concepts. Okay, like concepts. But a lot of people talk about it. But does that really help? These are the things that people generally do. Okay, now let me tell you what is the problem with this. Okay, what is the problem with practicing questions? Okay, so first of all, I understand that practicing questions actually help. Okay, you understand that, okay, when you're solving questions, you're going to learn something new from it. They are helpful, but they are not the most effective approach to improve your scores. You probably know something new. You get to learn about something new or some new question. You know what is the error in that question. But unless you approach the practice thing properly, you're not going to improve your score significantly. Okay, I know a lot of you might be thinking, what is Piyush telling us? Okay, he's telling us that, okay, practicing questions is not going to help improve my score. That's probably the most common thing I have heard. Is he mad or what? Let me explain why I say so. Okay, let me actually help you understand the algorithm, how the algorithm works, how it tests you on, and then you'll be in a much better position to understand what's wrong with just practicing questions. Okay, so I'm going to run very quickly through this slide because I talk about this slide quite a few times. So generally how the algorithm works is it gives you it helps you get started at a medium difficulty level mostly. Okay, every student gets the first question at a medium difficulty level, and if you get it right, the difficulty level is increased. Okay, And if you get the second question right, the third question is more tougher, and you get that right, the question is of similar difficulty level or higher. Let's say you got it wrong, your difficulty level drops, and so on. Okay, so if I look at this student has scored 12 points because he has gotten 3 points in the medium question that he got right, 4 points in the medium hard question, and 5 points in the hard question. So his score is 12 points. His accuracy is 3 out of 5, which is 60%. Let's look at another student. Okay, so this student also starts at the same difficulty level, but instead of getting the first question right, he makes a mistake there. He goes to the next question. He makes a mistake there as well. He goes to the next question. He gets it right. Actually, the easiest question, he gets it right. The difficulty level increases. He gets the third, fourth question right, and the difficulty level increases. He gets the fifth question right as well. Now, what is his score? He gets 1 plus 2 plus 3, a total of 6 points. Okay, his accuracy is also 60%. So what I wanted to establish here was two people having very, very similar accuracies can have very, very different scores. Okay, and that's something which is very important for you to understand. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you again. This is a use case which is not exactly like the GMAT. This is a quick understanding of the GMAT algorithm. GMAT doesn't adapt after every question. For my research, it adapts your difficulty level after 3 or 4 questions. It looks at your accuracy in a block of 3-4 questions, and depending on the accuracy, it increases or decreases the difficulty level. Okay, that's generally how it happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a exact ESR report from one of our students. Okay, so this is an enhanced score report which is provided by the GMAT once you're done with your test. And what it shows is, let me help you understand this first and then we will analyze it. So what it shows is it divides the whole verbal section into 4 quarters. Okay, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Each quarter has like approximately like I would say 8 or 7 questions. For example, in the first quarter, there are 8 questions, 7 in the second, 7 in the third, and 8 in the last. That's how it is divided. This chart basically shows the student's accuracy in each of these quarters. So if you look at the data points, you'll understand that the student has made 25% of the questions wrong in first quarter. So he made 2 mistakes in the first quarter. He made basically 2 mistakes in the second quarter also. And then he made 3 mistakes in the last quarter. So his total mistakes in the entire verbal section of the test was 7. Okay, and look at his verbal score. His verbal score is 41. Okay, which is a pretty good score. A lot of you will be aiming for this score, I'm sure. Okay, so that's what the student actually scored. So register this in your mind. 7 mistakes, 41 is the verbal score of the student. Okay, I just took this screenshot and I have posted it in a new screen. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you another report. Okay, look at the score of this student. Okay, look at the performance of the student, not the score. I have hidden the score for the time being. And what I want you to do is I want you to see that this student has made 8 mistakes overall. Okay, and very quickly, again, some person is saying that they can't hear me. I just want to know if you can hear me, guys. Can you all hear me clearly, loud and clear? Just want to make sure that my voice is not causing any problems at all. All right, so I can see that all of you can hear me. That's great, guys. Okay, so let me now quickly go to the next poll. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you, you look at this ESR report. Okay, take your time if you have to. Tell me what could be the verbal score of this student. You have seen that 7 mistakes were made by the student on the top. He got a verbal 41. This student has made 8 mistakes, just 1 extra mistake. I want you to guess the verbal score of this student. Okay, can you guess it and tell me in the chat here, in the poll here, not in the chat, sorry. In the poll, can you tell me what was the verbal score of this student, guys? I would like to see like what are your guesses around this. Take your time if you have to. Okay. Thank you so much. I see that all of you can hear me, so that is good. In the meantime, you respond to the polls. I'm gonna take up a few questions from the chat, so feel free to take your time if you want to. Musana is asking, do GMAT algorithm also counts what wrong answer a candidate picks? So Musana, I think you are asking by what wrong answer you probably mean which option choice you are marking. Musana, GMAT doesn't do that. So it doesn't penalize you based on which option you're marking. So let's say B is the correct answer. It doesn't matter whether you mark C, D, or E as the answer. If you're getting it wrong, you're getting it wrong. I think that was your question. Let me know if you think otherwise. Okay, so I have a good number of responses. Abhi has posted his response in chat. Abhi, you can also post it in the poll. That is much better. Okay, Indranil, don't need to worry about the screenshot. It's already there on your screen. It's the one on the top. Okay, it's basically this first quarter is 8 questions, 7, 7, 8. It's just like this. Okay. Okay, fine. So let me end the poll now. Let me see what is your projection. All right. So I see most of you have. So it's a very equal split. I would say almost 20% for each. Like most of you say that it's 36 to 37. A good number of you are saying 38 to 39, 31 to 33. Also, some people have mentioned 34 to 35, and so on. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this poll, and I'm going to show you one more ESR, and I'm going to ask you this question. Tell me what could be the score of this student. Okay, he has made one extra mistake. He has made 9 mistakes overall. And before I start the poll, I'll just edit it a little bit. Okay, just edit it a little bit. So just give me a moment, guys. I'm going to add a few more options here so that you are able to guess the answers properly. Just give me a minute, guys. So think about your answer and store your response in your head. I'm gonna share the poll in a short while from now. Okay. Okay. So let me publish it now. So you have a poll here. I want you to guess the score of the last student, the one who has made 9 mistakes. Okay. One who has made 9 mistakes. Mehdi, I would request you to reserve your questions like GMAT, difference between GMAT and GRE. Those are very broad questions. I'm going to take them up in the last part of the webinar, which is the section 3 of the webinar. Okay. All right. So let's see what you guys think. Take your time, guys. I want to see what can you guess for the uh, third student, the one with 9 mistakes. Okay. I have a good number of responses. Let's wait for a few more to come and have a cup of water in the meantime. Okay, let me take a question from the poll in the comment, which I have. Also, I have a question in chat. Musan is asking if I pass question in the first 15 seconds and luckily got it right, will GMAT give me 4 marks for it if it's correct answer? Musana, GMAT doesn't tell that exactly, but I'm sure they will do that. Okay, Alejandro, will you receive a recording? Yes, you will, but there's nothing like attending the webinar live. So do attend it. In case you are not free and you have to do something else, you will get the recording mostly by tomorrow evening. Okay, so I do see most of the people have submitted their responses, and let me end the poll now. Okay, so most of you believe that the student would have scored somewhere between this 26 to 29 mark, and a good number of you, approximately around 70%, not 70, around 60% of you say that he would have scored 30 plus. Okay, and for this student, most of you went ahead with the option that he would have scored a 33 plus on the test. Okay, those were the responses by you people. Okay, now I'm going to reveal their scores. Okay, I'm going to show you the exact scores was what the students got, and these are ESR snapshots, by the way, guys. Okay, and watch it for yourself. The first student got a verbal 30. Okay, the second student got a verbal 21. Okay, take a moment if you want to digest this course. And tell me, do you really think GMAT is being fair over here? Do you think GMAT is fair? One extra mistake, you drop from 41 to 30. One extra mistake, you drop from 30 to 21. Is GMAT being fair here? And this is a very important part, guys, because unless you understand how the algorithm is really working, it doesn't really matter how you're going to prepare, because it's if you understand the algorithm, you prepare the right way, you plan the right way, and you are ready to take the test with the full throttle. Okay. Okay, Pradna is shocked. Dev is saying, what? I'm not able to understand. And Rita says, okay, it's not GMAT algorithm is not harsh. Okay, good. So I see that most of you are saying that GMAT algorithm is not harsh. I'm ending the poll now. And yeah, GMAT actually is one of the most most standardized tests in the world, and it is not harsh. And I'm going to show you why this happened. And Alejandro, you are right. Questions drop the difficulty level seriously. Okay, so that's something which is very, very important for you to measure. So Pradnya, don't worry about the confidence. You have to understand why this is happening. Once you understand why this is happening, mastering it will become much more easier. So why I actually talked about this whole thing is, most people, when I speak to most students, they're just worried about accuracy. They say that, okay, I have been practicing from the OG, I have been practicing from GMAT Club, and I get almost 70 to 80% of my questions right. So how does it matter? Like, I'm probably headed in the right direction. Okay, so I'm probably headed in the right direction. I am thinking in the right way. So I will get to my target score. That's how people think. But if you look at the accuracy of these students, like 7 mistakes out of 36 is very close to accuracy of 81, 82%. Okay, all these people are around 80% accuracy itself, all of them. Okay, but look at the difference in scores. The difference in scores was huge. Okay, and I'm going to show you the percentiles. Look at this percentiles now. 93 percentile for 7 mistakes, 58 percentile for 8 mistakes, 26 percentile for 9 mistakes. Okay, so that this is what has happened because of these many mistakes. So you cannot look at accuracy. You cannot just look at accuracy. Harshit, you are right. Getting hard question right is important, and that's what I'm going to come to now. Okay, so they were saying, but he got accuracy, 100% accuracy in section 1. Dev, who are you talking about? I don't see anyone having 100% accuracy in section 1, and that's what is most important. The first quarter is what is most important. So Anandita has a question. I have to take the GMAT on 28, 5 months preparation. I know that 9 mistakes is 21. Okay, yeah, so it's not like 9 mistakes is 21, Anandita. It depends. Okay, people can end up with a 21 with even 14, 15 mistakes. I've seen people getting a 21 with even more mistakes. So it's not about the accuracy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's more about where you get those questions wrong. Okay, and let me now show you this with the help of a simple example. Okay, so Bhavika has just mentioned that I took a mock test, made 12 mistakes in verbal, and had a score of 31. Is the mock test inaccurate? So I cannot just judge whether the mock was accurate or inaccurate based on the data that you suggested. But if you ask me, is it possible to have a score of 31 with 12 mistakes? Yes, Bhavika, it is possible. It depends on where you are getting those questions wrong. Okay, and see, the whole point of the adaptive test is, if you do well on the initial questions, you can actually get to a decent score. Basically what happens is, if you do well on the initial questions, you will actually see a jump in your difficulty level, your average difficulty level. And as the average difficulty level goes up, the questions that you're getting are of higher value. Okay, if you get higher value questions right, you get a higher score. Okay, remember this chart which I showed you. I'll just go back again. Remember this simple chart. Okay, I know it's not exactly how the GMAT works, but think of it for a moment. Both people have 60% accuracy, but one person has 12 points and the other person has 6 points. The reason simply is, the first person has shown the capability of getting a medium hard, and hard question right. The second person did not have that capability. So that's how an adaptive algorithm is going to work. So you have to ensure that you have the capability of getting the hard questions right. So now look at the difficulty level charts. Okay, so try to focus here now, guys. I'm going to move out of the chat now. I'm going to talk about this difficulty level chart of these students. So I'm first showing you the difficulty level chart of the student who scored a 30 and 41. Okay, there is one extra mistake which was made by the student on the left. But the problem with the first student is that he made 4 mistakes in the first quarter itself. And I'm sure a lot of these mistakes would have happened in the first 3-4 questions itself. What happened because of it was the average difficulty level. If you see the average difficulty level of the student in the first quarter itself is somewhere around this level, okay, somewhere below medium. And if you look at the average difficulty level of this student, on the other hand, it is somewhere around very close to medium, because he also made 2 mistakes. Had he not made 2 mistakes, the difficulty level would have been higher, but he did not make 4. So the algorithm served him better, more difficult questions in the later half of the first quarter, is how I will put it. But overall difficulty level not just affected the score in the first quarter, it also affected the score in the second quarter. Okay, so that's something which happened with the student. So look at the accuracy difficulty level basically of the student in the second quarter. The first student on your left basically got most of the questions at medium, low to medium difficulty level. The second student, on the other hand, got the questions right which were of medium high difficulty level. Okay, focus on this part. Okay, so this is what is very important, and I have another person supporting the whole point. So they were saying one of my mates got around 8 questions correct. I think you meant around 8 questions wrong. Still got V40. He had 100% accuracy in section 1 and 38% in section 4. Exactly, that's what matters. You have to make sure that the mistakes are happening towards the end. Okay, but even before that, you have to understand why that happens. Okay, so see, what is happening here is the first student is getting questions right, but the questions that he is getting right, look at the blue dot, it is the correct ones that he is getting right. Those questions are low to medium difficulty level. On the other hand, the second student is getting questions right, but the questions he is getting right are of medium to high difficulty level. Okay, now that, and if I juxtapose them next to each other, you'll be able to see that there's a huge gap between the average difficulty level that the student is getting right, and that's why GMAT is giving him a higher score for the questions that he is getting right. And it doesn't stop here, because he is getting these questions right. The questions that come next, look at the questions in the third quarter that he has gotten right. Those are also of a similar difficulty level. Okay, by the way, both students on the left and the right scored 100% in the third quarter, but just because the student 2 was getting more difficult questions, his score was way higher. Okay, and that's what basically is something you have to focus on. Okay, so you have to get tough questions right, and I'm going to show you the ESR of the student who made 9 mistakes, 26 percentile. Look at his average difficulty level. Look at the questions he's getting right. It's staying in this range for the entire time. Okay, it's almost in this range, very close to low difficulty level. He is not able to get the hard questions right. The moment the algorithm served him a hard question, he messed it up. The algorithm started believing that, okay, this student does not have the capability of getting it right. So does it matter that he had such high accuracies towards the end? Probably not. Dev, what he mentioned was a case when his friend got 100% here and a 38% here, he ended up with a 40, because that's what matters more. If you get the questions initially right, your difficulty level will shoot up, and that's what you should be looking at. Okay, that's what you should target. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, I've been speaking for long, a lot of data that we have looked at, but what is that we are trying to deduce here? What we are trying to deduce here is skill rules over accuracy. Accuracy is not the king, skill is the king. And what does skill mean? It basically means which questions do you get right. So skill denotes your ability to get a question right from any difficulty level. Okay, so quick poll, guys. I have been speaking from a long time now. I want you to I want to understand, did you understand this part clearly? Quick yes, no. Quick yes, no, guys. Okay, and Ranil, I'm going to answer that question for you, but please tell me if you're clear with this part, like how the algorithm is working. All right, Indranil, how many quarters are important after quarter 1? So Indranil, if you're targeting up to a verbal 42, the first 3 quarters are all that matters. You have to get a very high accuracy there. All right. I'm going to talk about timing as well, Indranil, later on in the third part of the webinar. Please hold on for that. Okay, accuracy of questions above 700 should be good then. Yes, Pratik, that is what is important, and I'm going to come to that part now. Good. I'm really, really happy to see that you guys you guys understood the GMAT algorithm. It was very difficult when I was a student. I did not really understand it well. I took a lot of did a lot of research, did a lot of digging. I could come up with this, and I'm happy to know that you guys were able to understand it. Good, guys. So I'm going to summarize the whole thing now. I'm going to make it very easy. Okay. So let's understand, what does a score of less than 550 signify? Okay. Ritika, I'm going to come to practicing difficult questions, but remember this, just practicing difficult questions is not going to work. So I'm going to talk about that. Just let me build on the entire story, because once you understand it from in a story point of view, it becomes very easy for you to relate to it, and it sinks in well. Okay. So let's now understand, what does various score ranges mean. So, okay. So what does a score range of less than 550 signify? What it basically means is, if you are in this score range, what is happening with you is, when it comes to easy questions, you get most of them right. You basically get around 60 to 70% of them right. Now, obviously, it depends also on where, how close are you to 550. So if you are very close, you're probably getting, let's say, 70% of them right. Okay, but if you're, let's say, far away from it, you're at a 450 level, probably you're getting just 50-60% of them right, 50% of them right, maybe. Okay, but so what happens is, since you're getting a good number of easy questions right, the algorithm does serve you medium questions. Okay, but the moment the algorithm serves you medium questions, you start struggling. You are only able to get 30-40% of them right, and that's why you hardly get to see any hard questions at all. That's what a score of less than 550 denote. Okay, now let's look at what. So basically, why is this happening? You're mostly struggling with easy questions. You're mostly struggling with easy and medium questions. Hard, you're also struggling with hard, but you haven't reached that level as well. So for this student, the bigger problem is concepts. His conceptual gaps are not, like, he has a lot of conceptual gaps. His concepts are not in place. Okay, so that is something which is very important. And Anulitha, again, that is something I'm going to come to. So you're mentioning you are at a 380 and you have gotten to 560, but being stuck at 570 by 7th mock. So it's not about taking mock tests. It's not just taking mock tests. Trust me, guys, I took the GMAT just taking 3 mocks before the test. Okay, it's not about the marks. I scored a 740 just by 3 mocks. It is more about something else. I'm going to come to that, and I'm going to build that story now. So understand this. If you're at this score range, you are mostly struggling with concepts. But what does a score range of 550 to 650 signify? Let's see. If you are in the score range, what it means is you're getting most of the easy questions right. So maybe your accuracy is around 80-90% here, or maybe 100%, depending on how close you are to a 650. In medium questions, you are basically going to talk about, you're basically struggling around 60, 70, 80% kind of a score. So Vaibhav, this is basically what does 650 score range look like. So since you are having more than 50% getting more than 50% questions right from medium difficulty level, the algorithm does serve you hard questions. It's not like it doesn't serve you hard questions. It does serve you hard questions. The problem is, when you get hard questions, you start getting them wrong. Okay, you hardly have 10-20%, 30% accuracy in them, and that's when the algorithm stops serving you hard questions. So your difficulty level, instead of going like this, it goes like this. Okay, and this is something which a lot of people call as score plateau. Okay, your difficulty level has plateaued. That's what generally happens. So if you are around this range, this is what is happening. And the reason why you are stuck at this range is very simple. You are struggling with application of concepts. You are not struggling with concepts. You are struggling with application of concepts. Okay. Angeline, I'm going to talk about your question. You're asking, is it necessary? It is necessary or possible to get all the hard questions right? What if we make some mistakes in hard questions? There is a scope of making errors in hard questions, and I'll talk about that as well. Okay. So very quickly, if I have to summarize, if I have to compare the two categories that we looked at, score below 550 and score in the range of 550 to 650. Now, why am I talking about these two score ranges? The reason I'm talking about these two score ranges is, if you are there in this webinar, it is highly likely that you are in one of these two categories. So what is the difference between the two? The people who are there in the first category are not getting hard questions at all. The people who are in the second category are struggling to get the hard questions right. They are getting hard questions, they are getting served hard questions by the algorithm, but they're not able to get them right. So, what you have to do is you have to make the algorithm serve you hard questions and then get those hard questions right. That's what is required. And Anulitha, you have got the thing right. It is application is the real problem. Okay, so these are the two simple things. If someone asks you what is the key to score a 700 plus on GMAT, two simple things: make the algorithm serve you hard questions and then get them right. That's it. Okay, I know it's easier said than done, but that's the crux of the story. So how do you do that? How do you make the algorithm serve you hard questions first? For that, you need to get a high accuracy on easy and medium questions. Now, how do you get a high accuracy on easy and medium questions? You need to have strong conceptual knowledge for any topic, any given topic, okay? Whether it is prime numbers, whether it is coordinate geometry, permutation combination, or modifiers, parallelism, assumption, evaluate, whatever. You need to have a high accuracy in easy and medium questions, and you can only do that by having a sound conceptual knowledge. That's the first thing. Okay. Now, the second thing that you need to focus on is getting the hard questions right. How do you do that? There's only one way to do it. You have to learn the right skills to solve questions, and you have to learn how to apply these skills. Okay, so I have another question from Dev. I got a 590. I have a 48 in quant, 25 in verbal. Should I focus on verbal? So yeah, you need to focus on verbal, but quant also needs to be taken care of. Okay. Akshat also had a question. I'll just take it up very quickly. If someone answers a hard question correctly, would the next question always be a hard question, or can the next question be of a lower difficulty in some cases? Akshat, generally it's going to be a hard question unless you have an experimental question coming up. That's a different thing, but otherwise it's going to be of a very, very similar difficulty level. Okay, so yeah, let's move forward. So you have to get the hard questions right. You have to learn the right skills and how to apply them. So what does a score of 700 plus signify? And I'm going to answer your question, Indranil, now. So if you have to get a 700 plus, you kind of have to have a very high accuracy in easy and a very high accuracy in medium questions. So your scope, the scope for error here is very limited. So maybe 90% plus is what you need in these two question types. Okay, difficulty levels rather. In hard questions, how much scope do you have? Again, it depends on how high you are aiming. Okay, so let's say you're aiming approximately around at a 700 level. And again, understand this, guys. I'm talking about 700 level. I'm not talking about overall 700 score. So 700 level. Okay, so if you are targeting a 700 level in quant or targeting a 700 level in verbal, you need to have at least a 50 to 60% accuracy in the hard questions. Let's say you're targeting a 730 kind of a score, so you need to have around 70% accuracy in hard questions. Let's say you're targeting a 750 kind of a score, maybe you're looking at an 80% accuracy in hard questions, and that's how it generally works. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions which are personal, like some people are saying I'm at a 600, I am at a 650. So guys, again, I can talk about your individual cases as well, but since this webinar is about an overall approach, I will refrain from discussing individual cases right now. If you want, you can book a consultation call with me one-on-one. I'm going to share the link for the consultation call in the chat. So here goes the link. You can book a one-on-one call with me. We can discuss about your individual approaches. That's not a problem. But in the webinar, I'm going to give you an overview, and then I'm going to take up some questions towards the end of the webinar also. Okay, but if you want to discuss your cases one-on-one, Ritika, Dev, and Tanishq and other people, please schedule a one-on-one call with me. Okay, Indranil, I'm going to talk about the timing part. Don't worry about it. Okay, so let's move forward. So this is what a score of 700 plus signify, and that is why just solving questions is not enough, because when you're only practicing questions and you're taking mocks, you're most probably repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Understand this. Why are you getting a question wrong? Think about it for a moment. Sorry guys, why are you getting a question wrong? There is a reason why you are getting it wrong. Okay, you are probably not able to apply the concepts on those questions methodically. You're probably taking longer than it is required to take, because the approach that you're following is not the best approach. Now, if you don't know the right approach and you keep on practicing questions, you're bound to make the same mistakes again and again, again and again. I'm not saying that you won't improve, you will improve, but the improvement is going to be very slow. Imagine a snail like crawling. Okay, so obviously it's not going to be that great. So you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's where the right skills come into picture. So if you practice questions after learning the right skills, you will actually see your score improving to that 700 level. You will actually be successful, because then you are approaching your prep in a methodical way. You're not just randomly solving questions, taking some question from here, some question from there, and solving it. That doesn't work. You have to learn the right methods. Okay, and problem is basically most people, when they think about skill, they just think about concepts, they don't really worry about the application. So when you are basically learning something, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, what students should do. So till now I was talking about what generally people do. Now I'm going to talk about what students should do. Okay, so they should build the skills. Now, for example, what does a skill mean? So I'm taking an example of CR. In CR, pre-thinking is one of the most effective skills. If you use pre-thinking, you actually get to the answers much quickly in a much more effective way. Now, what is pre-thinking? A lot of people don't really even understand what pre-thinking is. So in pre-thinking, there are three simple steps. The first and foremost step of pre-thinking is you have to understand the argument and the scope of conclusion. If you do not understand the argument well, you do not understand the scope of the conclusion, you will not be able to pre-think your answer, because the scope of the conclusion is what actually determines exactly what are the most important aspects of the argument. And once you understand them, you are able to pre-think your answer, because you know what will affect the argument the most. Okay, and then you should go to eliminating the answer choices. And trust me, I see most of the people focusing mostly on the step three. They read the argument, they don't understand the argument, they generally read the argument, and they directly move to eliminating incorrect choices. Okay, and that's when they get stuck with two close choices in the end. So you have to learn the right method, which is the pre-thinking methodology. And in case you haven't registered for the webinar of CR yet, you can do so. I'm going to share the link once again to you guys in the chat here. So if you want to attend the entire webinar on it, we have a webinar coming on Saturday on CR. You can do it. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to pre-think with a simple example, because obviously it is important for you to understand the strategy, but you also need to understand how, what do I mean by skills. Okay, what is the right method and how it can change the whole game. Okay, so I have this question in front of you. I want you to take a shot at this question. I'm going to mute myself now. Okay, and I'm going to give you a poll. I want you to take a shot and solve this question. I'll give you 3 odd minutes to solve it, and let's then connect again, discuss the solution and the approach. Okay, and trust me guys, I'm not interested in which option do you mark. I'm more interested in how you approach it. So here is the poll for you. All the best. I'm going to be muted for approximately 2.5 to 3 minutes. Okay, so all the best. Alright guys, so 20 more seconds before I end the poll. So mark your options if you haven't yet done so yet. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. So, yeah, so let's discuss this question. Now, a lot of you find problems in pre-thinking, and that's one of the key reasons why at GMAT we have actually came up with a pre-thinking framework. So what we have done is we have looked at the various kind of arguments that are there on the GMAT. So if you look at the CR arguments which are there is something called a plan and goal argument. There's something called comparison argument, comparison framework argument. There's something called causality and quant-based arguments. So what we have done is we have given some pre-thinking guidelines for each of these arguments, and based on these guidelines, if you start pre-thinking, you will be able to get to the answer much more faster. And yes, Kranti, you're stuck in BNE, and BNE were the closest ones. Most of the people got stuck with it, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to run you through the solution, so don't worry about that part now. Okay, so for example, this particular argument was a causal argument. What is a causal argument? It has a cause and the effect relationship. So let's say there is a cause X and there's a effect Y. If the argument talks about a cause and effect relationship, how can you pre-think? So the pre-thinking can basically, the argument is talking about X causes Y. So what are the pre-thinking guidelines? There are three things that you can think of. One is X should have happened before Y. There should be no other alternate cause for it, and no reverse causality exists. So why shouldn't cause X? So these are three pre-thinking guidelines that we established for a causality argument, and I'm going to help you apply that in this question. So first, let's analyze the question stem. And as one of you was saying, Alejandro, I think he mentioned that he was able to improve from 650, 680 to 700, 710 because he started reading the prompt correctly. And that's very important, Alejandro, and for everyone else. It's very important that you analyze the question stem because that will help you to pre-think. So let's do that. So let's read it. In a study to understand the impact of taking online tuitions. So we are talking about a study. Is Wait, I am not sure if you guys can hear me. I'll just ask you this question, guys. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no, quickly. I see that someone is asking that they can't hear me. Okay, let me put this poll here. So can you hear me? Quick, yes, no, guys. Okay, so Kranti, I think if you are not able to hear me, there's some problem at your end. You might have to rejoin. So I think everyone can hear me. Great. So let's restart again. So in a study to understand the impact of taking online tuitions, there's a study about impact of taking online tuitions. In this study, we are looking at the impact of taking online tuitions on the academic performance, academic scores of high school students. So what is this study talking about? About basically the paragraph is talking about a study and it's describing its aim. The aim is to find the impact of taking online tuitions on the academic scores of high school students. In this study, researchers followed the scores of a group of students who had never taken such tuitions but were counseled to do so. Okay, so what is the process? The process is they are going to look at students who were asked to consider these tuitions and they haven't done the tuitions earlier. So the plan seems to be good. Okay, they are taking students who are new to this, so they will be able to identify the effectiveness appropriately. Let's move forward. Okay, those who took up tuitions within a fortnight of the start of the study, so they're looking at the right data points. Also they're looking at students who took the tuitions very initially, just within a fortnight of the start of the study, were thrice as likely to get lower scores at the end of the study than those who did not take up the tuitions. So what is the result of the study? They found out, so basically this part is telling me the result. They found out that students who started taking the tuitions within a short span of time tripled their chances of getting much lower scores as compared to those who did not take up the tuitions. Okay, let's read on. Since online tuitions make the student dependent on them, okay, so it's talking about some reasons. Okay, it is telling us that since online tuitions make students dependent on them, on the tuitions, perhaps thereby making them inattentive in class. So there's a very, very important fact which is presented. So students become dependent on online tuitions, and an opinion which is stated is because of that they pay less attention in the class. It is likely that online tuitions lead to lower scores in high school students. So this is the cause and effect. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is talking about probably online tuitions cause high school students to get lower scores. And what is the reason that is established? The reason that is established is because they pay less attention in the class. Okay, so you have to understand this part, that this part is very, very important. Why is the online tuition leading to low score? It's not leading to low score directly. The analysis is like this: online tuitions lead to low attentiveness, okay, which leads to low scores. So this is the line of thought that the author has followed over here. Okay, so think of it this way, and let's move forward. So if you look at the framework, what is the cause? The cause is online tuitions, and in a way it is also related to inattentiveness, and the effect is low score. So if I try to follow my guidelines, okay, the first guideline says X should have happened before Y. So I have to strengthen this argument, right? This was a strengthener question. So what is the first strengthener that I can think of? So X, what is X? Online tuition. So ideally, any statement that shows that students who took online tuitions were previously not scoring low. Okay, so before taking online tuitions, they were not scoring low. So X happened before Y. They took online tuitions and then they started scoring low. Then if I see any statement which is communicating that thought, that will actually strengthen the argument. What else is possible? The second guideline is no alternate cause. Basically, X is what led to Y. Okay, so Akshat, this webinar is going to last for another 15-20 minutes roughly. So what is the strengthener to any statement that indicates nothing else could have led to the lower scores in the high school students? So we already talked about this, that online tuitions lead to inattentiveness. The passage hints at the idea that inattentiveness probably caused the low scores. So this is the overall flow. So if any statement supports the idea of inattentiveness in the class, basically, then we can say that, okay, any idea that supports that inattentiveness leads to low scores, which basically strengthens this particular link, okay, then that can also be the right answer. Let's look at the third guideline: no reverse causality. What does it mean? Y couldn't have caused X. For example, another strengthener could be students to take online tuitions. So for example, if some statement tells us that people who had lower scores did not have a higher probability of taking the online tuitions, that's something which could be a strengthener. Okay, so let's look at option A and B first, and then let's go to E, because most of you marked A, B, and E. Very few of you marked C and D. So let's quickly do that. So students who took up online tuitions were more intelligent than those who did not take up the tuitions. Now, what is the problem with this? First problem is we cannot assume there is a correlation between intelligence and scores. So this choice tells us that they are more intelligent. Okay, it doesn't tell us that students who are taking up these tuitions did not have higher scores or something like that. Okay, so we don't know whether there is a relation that exists between the two. And even if we assume that people who are more intelligent are likely to get higher scores, this choice is vaguely worded. Why I say so? What does no more intelligent mean? It could mean two things. It could mean same level of intelligence, or it could mean lower level of intelligence. Okay, so when it means same level of intelligence, lack of intelligence cannot, then the conclusion, the whole point of this argument, this choice is that lack of intelligence cannot be blamed for lower scores, which is basically supporting the conclusion, as we said in strengthener 3, that if there is something which says that lack of intelligence cannot be blamed for lower scores, then it means that it should have been the online tuitions which actually led to the lower scores. But this is only if we assume the intelligence level to be same. What if the intelligence level is low? In that case, we can blame the low level of intelligence for the lower scores. So this choice could support or weaken the argument depending on how you understand it. Okay, let's look at choice B. So this is definitely not the strengthener. Let's look at choice B. Now this is the most common that a lot of you marked. Students who already had lower scores when the study started. So I'm talking about students who had lower scores when the study started. So and this is actually very close to the strengthener, so this is very tricky. Let's understand this. So let's denote these students as A. Students who had lower scores when the study started were as inclined to take up online tuitions at the end of the study as the students who had higher scores. So we are comparing two group of students. First group is students who had lower scores at the start of the study. Second group is students who have higher scores at the start of the study. So let's say A and B. Now, if you replace this with A and B, this part is A, okay, and this part is B. So what it says is A were as inclined to take up online tuitions at the end of the study. Okay, it says that at the end of the study A was more inclined. It doesn't say that they were similarly inclined at the beginning of the study. Okay, so this choice actually talks about equal inclination by the time the study ended. Had it talked about equal inclination at the start of the study, this could have been a strengthener, but this is incorrect. So Akshat is asking what is the difficulty level of this question. Akshat, I would say this is around that 650, 700 level as of now. Okay, because of two close choices. Let's leave C and D because very few people marked it. And again, I'm not here to teach you CR. I'm just here to help you understand how an approach can help you. Now, if you look at this choice is very much in line with the strengthener 2. What it says is most of the questions in the school assignments are based on the class lectures and student-teacher interaction rather on the school textbooks. So if the assignments are based on the class lectures, and if a student is inattentive, that is something which the argument has established already, that online tuitions lead to inattentiveness. And if inattentiveness becomes a problem, then the students will score low. Now, when does inattentiveness become a problem? If the school assignments are testing the things which are discussed in the classroom. So if you are not really paying attention in the class, then you are going to score low. Okay, so that's what this argument is telling us, and that's why it is a strengthener. Okay, so if you are able to apply the methods properly, you will be able to solve questions correctly. You will not be getting confused with two close choices. And it's very important that you learn the right method to solve questions. And I'm just showing you the right methods that we believe are the most effective. So in SC, you should follow the meaning-based approach. In CR, you should follow the pre-thinking approach. In RC, you should follow involved and evolved reading. In DS, you should follow drawing inferences. And in PS, you should go for a three-step process. Okay, so a lot about what is supposed to be done. Okay, but how is it supposed to be done? What about the action plan? So now I'm going to talk about the action plan. How should you basically move ahead and put everything in action to improve your score by 100 plus points in 30 days? Let's get started with this part now. Let's see. So what should be your approach? So what you need to do is you should not work on both the sections at the same time. Let's say you should not work on quant and verbal at the same time. Focus on one section at a time. And if you are a retaker, focus on working on your weak areas first. Again, all this is very subjective. It depends on how much time do you have. When I say focus on one section at a time, I'm assuming you are a working professional, okay, which is the case with most of the people. So if you're a working professional, focus on one section at a time, and if you should work on your weak sections first. And let me help you understand by dividing it into verbal and quant. So I'll talk about verbal first, then I'll move to quant. So if you have to improve your verbal score, create a benchmark of 70 percentile. Maybe take up a sectional test in basically SC, CR, and RC. If you have your ESR, that is good enough. If you don't have it, take a sectional test and divide the sections into two groups. Group 1 is where you have less than 70 percentile. Group 2 is where you have more than 70 percentile. Obviously, group 2 is what denotes your strong areas. Okay. Now let's assume a case. Let's assume that SC is in group 1, CR and RC is in group 2. Then what is the order in which you should go about doing things? You should basically then focus on doing CR first, then working on SRC, and in the end you should work on SC. So this should be a priority order provided you are at a 80% in SC. So the thing is very simple. You first take up your weaker areas out of the 3, you work on them, and then you move to the stronger area. Okay. So that is something that you have to do. Adit, the webinar is working perfectly. I don't see any other person talking about it. So maybe try rejoining in case it stopped at your end. Okay, so how do you tackle weak areas? So first thing that you need to do is you should take up a sectional test. Okay, take up a 20 to 30 question quiz in your weak area. So for example, let's say CR is a weak area. So you should take up a 20 to 30 question quiz for the weak area. And Filter topics where you get less than 60%. Okay, filter topics where your accuracy is less than 60%. What you need to do is, for the topics where your accuracy is less than 60%, you need to solidify your conceptual knowledge as well. The idea is simple. Let's say in CR, you identify that in assumption and evaluate, your accuracy is pretty low, and in other areas, your accuracy is generally high. In that case, what it basically means is, in assumption and evaluate, less than 60% basically means you're struggling with concepts as well. So you have to revise the concepts. Even if you think you know the concepts, it makes sense to revise it. Okay, and if CR is your weak area, there is a very very high chance that most of the topics in CR you will find below 60%. So for every topic that you have below 60%, you need to revise the concepts. Okay, and a lot of you were asking me, how do I understand, how do I identify the weak areas and all. So we have our quizzing platform Quizard, which allows you to create a customized quiz. So you can basically take up a proper end-to-end quiz. You can take up a quiz for quant if you want to, just like the GMAT, a sectional quiz you create. If you want to focus on specific modules, you can just take a geometry and number properties quiz. Okay, you can even take up specific areas in geometry. Okay, you can take up just quadrilaterals, 3D geometry, triangles, and in number properties you can probably take up just quizzes on divisibility, statistics, and unit digits. So James, that is exactly what I'm showing, how to make a customized quiz. So you can focus on these areas specifically. You can just take DS quizzes, you can just take easy quizzes or whatever. So you can make any customizations on our Quizard platform. You can do unattempted questions and everything. Okay, so what I want you to do is take a module-wise quiz for your weak areas, identify, remember this, take 20 to 30 questions at least, identify which are your weak areas, less than 60% is a weak area, and revise the concepts for them. So I have a very interesting question. Kranti is asking, is that free or we have to purchase? So in Quizard, you can take up around 20 questions free of charge, but you see there are a lot more questions. There are around 1000 questions in the Quizard. So obviously that is a part of the like paid package. So let's move to the next part. Now, what is the time that you will require? And this is the next thing which a lot of people ask. Okay, I have to improve on the weak areas, but how much time do I need to put in? And this is all sectional timings that I'm talking about. So if you have one weak area, let's say you are weak in CR, for example, ideally you would require approximately 30 to 40 hours of prep time on this, because you have to go through the concepts, you have to learn the application as well. So but the good thing is, if you're putting in 30 to 40 hours, you should be able to see an improvement of up to 4 points on verbal, which should improve your overall GMAT score by up to 30 points. So even one section, improving it properly, can help you take your overall score by up to 30 points. Now let's look at how you should tackle the strong areas. Basically, let's say any area where you have more than 70% accuracy. So what should be your approach to tackle that? So in your strong areas, you need to learn the right approach and you need to master it. Okay, so for example, in CR, I already talked about the approach. For SC, you need to first understand the intended meaning, then eliminate the choices with identified errors, and then you should evaluate the remaining choices. So what I'm trying to say here is, in your strong areas, the problem is not your concepts. The problem is how you are applying those concepts. Now, how do you do that? How do you improve on it? So the method to learn the right approach is, first thing, you have to understand the method. You have to first understand how the method is applied. And remember, you have to understand in depth, step 1, step 2, step 3, exactly how each of these steps are done. You have to understand it. Then what you have to do is, you have to solve 15 questions each and focus on this part. You have to solve them one at a time. Don't take it like a quiz, general quiz, where you're solving all 15 at once. Take it one at a time. Solve one question, review the solution. Okay, read it line by line. Make sure that you are avoiding any deviations from the methodology. This part is very very critical. Okay, that's how you basically learn the approach. See, unless you solve a question and refer to a solution which is speaking the same language, and you will not be able to learn the approach. Because what happens generally is, you might think that you are pre-thinking. A lot of people come to me and say that, okay, so you said in the webinar that you have to pre-think, you have to read the passage well. I do that, but my score is not there. I tell them that the reason why your score is not there It is simply because you are not able to apply the approach appropriately. You know the approach, but knowing the approach and mastering the approach are two different things. So that is very important. Remember, you have to solve 15 questions one at a time, review the explanation, and avoid any deviations from the method. Do not worry about timing as of now. Just note down the deviations, learn from that question. You learn from question number one, apply it in question number two, then learn from question number two, apply it in three, and so on. The moment you do this for 15 odd questions and you're reading the explanations well, you will have a strong grasp over the method. Okay, that's something which is very, very important. So before you start and take up a lot of practice questions, take up a lot of mock tests, focus on doing this, focus on getting this approach right. This is how you build the right approach. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about a challenge. Again, some of you might be already thinking about it also. Do you know a source which provides the solution in a methodical way? Because I see this question coming up a lot of times that, okay, I go through solutions, but most of the solutions are just talking about why A is wrong, why B is wrong, why C is wrong, and D is right. Okay, but do you have a source? Do you know a source which provides the solution in a very methodical way? For every single question, the same method is followed, and the same method is followed to solve every question. The detail is there for the question stem analysis, and not just the explanations, the answer, sorry, the options, sorry. Okay, so I have a good number of responses, and let me end the poll now. So yeah, so that's very common thing which students face a problem with, and that's what we realize is a biggest issue. So most resources do not focus on providing a methodical solution. They focus on giving questions, or like even sometimes questions are not GMAT style, but they do not focus on methodical solutions. So Kranti has a comment. He says, other than GMAT Club, I do not see anything. So even on GMAT Club, Kranti, you have to understand that there are multiple people who post the solutions. They do a very good job at it. They give their time and write down the solutions. But I'm talking about consistency in the methodology. You need to refer to the same methodology consistently, then only you will learn it. So this is something which is very difficult to get across, and that's why at GMAT we follow the same methodical approach for solving every single question type. We make sure that students learn the approach, and that's why we spend twice the time on writing the solution as we spend on actually creating the question. So that is something which is very, very core at GMAT Viz. We proudly call ourselves as a application driven course. We spend a lot of time and energy, and you guys can check it out from our free trial as well. And what we have done is, in order to do this, in order to teach you the approach, we have come up with the idea of a concept booster. So at GMAT Viz, after learning a concept and before moving to solving questions, you go through a concept booster. What is a concept booster? In the concept booster, you solve one question at a time. So if there are, let's say, 10 or 12 questions which are there in a concept booster, you will not get all of them at once. You will solve one question at a time, then you will review the solution, you will analyze the solution of the question, and you will figure out the gaps in your application. And when we are doing this, when we are creating a concept booster, we make sure that each question is handpicked. It is GMAT style. We look at all the various kind of questions that can come from a particular topic on the GMAT. We handpick questions, and each question covers a different aspect. So it readies you for facing all the various kind of challenges that you can face on a particular topic. And this concept booster idea is something which is entirely followed throughout the course. So if you see, this is a snapshot of the our study plan page. If you see, this is a snapshot of prime numbers. So you can see that we are teaching you the video lessons. So look at, these are video lessons. These are concept videos where we teach you concepts. Okay, so all these are concept files. You learn concepts, and then you can see these two concept boosters on prime numbers. So this is where we teach you how to apply these concepts. Okay, so this is for application of concepts, and then you have a practice quiz coming up, which is for practice. So remember, you also have to study in this 3-step process. Okay, and this is done for every single topic which is taught in the course, whether it is prime numbers, whether it is triangles, whether it is assumption, whether it is modifiers, or anything. You can check out a free trial to see how we are doing it. But this concept booster is very important because it helps you learn the right methodologies. Okay, so once you have mastered the application, okay, basically what you need to do is you need to solve 30-40 questions using the same approach. Remember, earlier I said you have to solve 15 questions one at a time. That was one at a time kind of a thing because you're learning the approach. Now I'm talking about mastering the approach. So in order to master the approach, you should solve additional 30 to 40 questions. You can take up 5 to 10 question quizzes if you want to do that. You can take them in form of quizzes, but make sure that you're reviewing the solution even for these ones. Okay, this is very critical. So once you review the solutions, you will be internalizing the method and it automatically reduces time. And I'm sure a lot of you might have thought this, and let me ask you this question now. When I was solving the question using the pre-thinking method, did you think that it is too time consuming? Quick yes no here. Did you think that it is too time consuming? And I want you to be very honest and blunt to me. If you found it to be too time consuming, tell me. When I was solving the CR question that I gave you guys, the approach that I followed, did you find it too time consuming? Quick yes no here. Okay. Okay, good. I really appreciate your honesty. Everyone says it was time consuming. Yes, it is. In fact, whenever you learn the right methods, it will take you extra time initially. Okay, and that's what happens with any skill that you learn. When you probably learned how to drive a car, you had to think of the gearbox, you have to think of the escalator, clutch, brake, steering wheel, the side mirrors, the back mirror, and so many things at the same time. It was a mess. Okay, and the reason it was a mess was this was a skill that you were learning. And if you understand psychology, there are two parts of our brain: it's conscious mind and subconscious mind. When you're learning a new skill for the first time, your conscious mind is doing every activity, and your conscious mind is much slower than your subconscious mind. Okay, but once you do it multiple times, iterate on it again and again, again and again, again and again, your subconscious mind takes that method and it starts doing it. It becomes a part of how you do things. And I'm sure you're able to relate to it. Now, probably when you drive a car, you can even talk to your friend over a phone, okay, or who is sitting next to you, can do multiple things at the same time, just because the driving part is now taken care of by your subconscious mind. You don't have to think about everything, it automatically gets done. And that's what happens if you learn the right approach to solve questions. And ensure that you're doing it with the right approach, because if you're just doing it with shortcuts, trust me, your subconscious mind will never kick in, you will never have a high accuracy, and you'll still be stuck. Okay, so this is what you do to master the application. And if you are having any strong area, the time needed to improve your strong area would be around 15 to 20 hours per module. When I say module, I mean SCCR or RC. So if you have, let's say, two modules in group, like group 2, which is like your strong area, then probably you need to spend around 30 to 40 hours. It should get you another 4 points jump. So working on one module for application perspective should easily kick your score by 2-3 points. Okay, and your overall score should get increased by around 30 points. Now, what about quant? So we talked about verbal. What about quant? So in quant, the strategy has to be slightly different. So what you should do is you should take a 20-question quiz in each of these areas: number properties, algebra, word problems, and geometry. And after you have taken this quiz, you should identify topics where your accuracy is less than 60%. If your accuracy is less than 60%, you need to revisit the concepts for these topics. Okay, and practice at least 10 questions on each. In topics where your accuracy is more than 60%, you don't really need to revisit the concepts. You just need to revisit the concept boosters, which are the application files. Okay, so how GMAT Quiz can help here to increase your quant speed? So basically, we have our platform. In our platform, we have diagnostic quiz before every quant question. So basically, what you can do is you can take a diagnostic quiz, and the platform uses AI to identify concepts you are already good at. So if you're already good at something, the platform will remove it from your course, and it will only keep the concept which you are weak in inside the course. Okay, and then you will move to booster lessons for everything, and that's how your progress will happen. So time required to improve on quant is basically dependent on how many points improvement you're looking at. So let's say you're looking at 1 point improvement. So that will require around 8 to 10 hours of effort if you do it on GMAT Viz AI-driven platform. So overall, if you're looking at 3 to 4 points improvement in quant, which is equivalent to 20 to 40 points improvement overall, it will require 25 to 40 hours of effort. Okay. So if I have to summarize everything, okay, step 1 should be working on either verbal or quant. Remember, you have to focus on application. Step 2, if you are working on verbal, you should create 2 groups. Group 1 less than 70%, group 2 more than 70%. In group 2, focus on building the right application skills. In group 1, focus on concepts and application. So Pradney, I was not talking about per week, I'm talking about overall timing, okay, individually. So if you put around 60 to 80 hours your on your verbal part, you should see an improvement of up to 8 points, which is an overall score improvement of around 60 points. Again, depends on where you are. I'm baselining everything around with a target of 700. For quant, you should work on weak concepts first. That is the idea, because on quant, the first 15 questions matter a lot. Again, that's a part of a test taking strategy, which I'm not going to discuss a lot in this webinar. But write to me if you want the recording for it. I can send it over to you. So for quant, you need to work on your weak concepts. By putting in 25 to 40 hours, you can improve your score by up to 4 points, and your overall score can be improved by 40 points. So if you look at overall timing, I believe with about 100 to 120 hours of prep time, you are looking at a 100-point score improvement. So even if it is 30, your test is 30 days away, you can still do a 100-point score improvement. Again, you have to think about what are your strong areas, what are your weak areas, and work on them accordingly. Okay, so this is where I come to the end of the webinar, the main part of the webinar, and I'm opening the discussion now to Q&A. So feel free to ask me any questions that you may have around your prep. I will be more than happy to answer them. And if you want to discuss your study strategy in detail with me, you can discuss this using this link. Again, this is a free consultation call that you can have one-on-one with me. You can just schedule a call using this. All right. So let me take up the questions which are there in the Q&A part. So I had a question from Kranti. Uh, just curious to know what's the weightage of very first question on actual GMAT. Kranti, good question. So what is the weightage of the very first question? Again, it is very important for you to get the first, the first questions right. Okay, when I say first, it is important to get the first quarter right. It is important to get the first half right. It is also important to get the first question right. So get the first question right is how I will put it. Okay, it's very, very important, because the difficulty level will start dropping otherwise. Harshit has a question. Shouldn't one practice verbal and quant simultaneously? Harshit, if you're a working professional and you have less time, you should not do it simultaneously. See, again, practicing is one thing which is important. So during practice, you can do it, but first fix the gaps. Okay, practicing is not just going to fix your gaps. If you have application gaps in your understanding, then you have to fix them. And in order to fix them, it is better that you actually work on one area and build momentum on it. Once you have done that, you can move to the simultaneous thing later on. And one more thing I'll tell you guys: if you choose to work with GMAT Viz and you take up the entire course, we provide you dedicated mentorship. What it means is we give you 7-day drills, 10-day drill kind of a work, where an expert is going to look at your performance, analyze and tell you consistently what is that you're supposed to do in the current class next week. For example, I'm working with a few set of students right now. I just had a call with one of them today. I told him exactly, looking at his performance on the portal, that exactly in the next week you're supposed to devote 3 days on verbal, 1 day on SC, 1 day on CR, 1 day on RC, and let's say rest of the 4 days you're supposed to do quant, and these are the things that you're supposed to do in quant. Okay, so we do provide dedicated mentorship. If you're interested in working with us, you can always speak to us. Uh, let's see another question. Bhavika says, how do we proceed with online GMAT exam, especially the whiteboard part? Yeah, Bhavika, so that is a big pain. Honestly, I don't like the whiteboard, and most of the people don't like it either. Quant is a big problem with it. What if you have to take the GMAT, in case you have to take the GMAT, then only go for the online version. Otherwise, wait for the test centers to open, is how I will put it. And what we have done from our end is to make it easy for students to get used to the whiteboard. We have introduced whiteboard in every single quiz right next to the question. So you can actually, if you work on the GMAT platform, you can see the whiteboard icon. You can practice on it. Okay, so I would recommend that if you are planning to take the GMAT anytime in the next 30 days, you should at least start practicing on the whiteboard. That's something you should do. Okay. Kranti has a question. Sorry, I meant which question would appear like 500, 600, 700 level. Okay, so Kranti, your question was which difficulty level will the first question be? Okay, so generally the first question generally in quant is around the 600 level, 550 to 600 level, and in verbal it's almost around the same level, is how I will put it. Vaibhav is asking a question: how many questions can I leave in the last fourth section? I struggle with the last phase, both in quant and verbal. So Vaibhav, trust me, if you get 100% accuracy, again that's very difficult, but if you get 100% accuracy in the first 3 quarters, you can even leave the last last section blank, you will still have a good score. When I say good score, you might have a 48 in quant and let's say a uh, what 40 41 in verbal, and people have done those experiments in reality. Okay, so again, but remember there's a big caveat over there, you have to do get 100% right in the first 3 sections. So fourth question is the least important, is how I will put it. So try to focus on the first 3, get that right. In the fourth question, if you are not having time, what I generally recommend students to do is you selectively solve questions. Let's say you have 5 questions in 10 minutes. Sorry, 10 questions in 10 minutes. Okay. Rather than solving all 10 of them, just solve 5 of them selectively and try to do them. Try to not choose them, like don't make consecutive mistakes, is how I will put it. Okay. Any other questions, guys? I don't see any other questions that over here now. So feel free to ask me if you have any other questions regarding your improvement, your preparation. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Okay, I'll wait for a couple more minutes and for any further questions that come from your side, guys. Okay, and feel free to provide with me with any feedback that you have regarding the webinar in the chat here. I'll be more than happy to receive the feedback and anything that you felt. How did you like the webinar? How was it? Did you find it helpful? What was the part which helped you the most, and so on. Okay, so I have a few more questions. How soon can I expect a response from you via email? Pratnya, most probably you're gonna receive the response by tomorrow. Let's see if I can do it today. So it's already pretty late at my end, but I'll try and see if I can respond today. Otherwise, you'll respond it tomorrow. Okay, Sanj has a question. Will you be doing a RC webinar anytime soon? So Sanj, we had just one webinar last week on RC. If you missed it, you can always write to me. Here's my email ID. You can write to me. I'll send you the recording of the webinar. Or you have to wait for another month maybe for the RC webinar. Okay, Vaibhav has another question. Hi, can we skip questions before the fourth phase if you are really struggling with it? Yes, Vaibhav. So you have to be prudent about when are you skipping questions. Okay, so ideally you should not skip questions, but let's say you are not seeing any headway, like you're not getting any headway into the question, you're not able to understand what it is, so there's no point in wasting time on the question. Okay, but do it only if you're not really sure about how it is basically you are not sure about how it is supposed to be solved. Okay, good, guys. So let me know if you have any other questions. I'll be happy to take them up. Otherwise, I'm going to end the webinar in another 2 minutes. I still don't see any feedback from you guys. So let me know how did you find it. Okay. Have there been quant webinars in the past, Pradna? Yes, there have been quant webinars. We do webinars on individual topics. So feel free to write to me. And I believe we will have another quant webinar in the coming week. So yeah, another 7-10 days you can wait. You can another have a live webinar to attend. Okay. Is it better to skip questions or mark it wrong? So good question, Bhavika. I'm just gonna answer it in a bit. Let me have a glass of water, and I'll wait for a few more questions in the meantime. So Bhavika, first, you cannot skip a question on GMAT. The only case in which you can skip a question is when you basically end the test and you're not able to complete the test basically. So never be in a position where you're leaving questions unmarked. So let's say you have 1 minute left on the clock and you have some good number of questions left, mark them randomly, but don't leave them unmarked, because getting a question wrong is penalized less than leaving it unmarked. Okay, so that's it. Pratna, there will be a registration link for quant. So we are yet to decide exactly on which day we are going to have it in the next week. So you will receive the link. If you register for this webinar, you will get a registration email for the next webinars also. You'll receive emails for every webinar that happens. Just if you want, you can add our email ID to your address book. You should be receiving emails for everything then. Okay, good enough. So I don't see any other questions in the pod here. So it was great to have you guys in the webinar today. So I hope you were able to understand how to improve your score. Make sure that you're focusing on the approach, the application skills that I talked about, because that's the key to improve your score on GMAT. Okay. And feel free to reach out to me. You have our website, you have my email ID, you have my contact number here. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. I'm always happy to help. Okay, so all the best. I'm gonna redirect you to our website. If you want to register for a free trial, you can do that. And all the best for the preparation.